Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm here on Monday, March 20th at about 2 p.m. Pacific time, right as we're having the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere and the autumnal equinox in the southern hemisphere. And I'm talking today about the new moon in Pisces, which is happening on the 22nd, which is tomorrow, in the morning on the East Coast, on the West Coast. So we're very close to this new moon that's happening in Pisces. And that's really a cycle of spiritual surrender, awakening from the dream. We have a kind of dream-like existence here on Earth, through this body, through this Maya, this illusion created by the senses and the body and all of those things that we're so plugged into. And so I'm going to be talking about this new moon in Pisces. It's also in Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra, which I'll be talking about. It's a very specific quality of Pisces. So you'll want to stick around and see that here today. And again, we're also this is also happening near the vernal equinox, as the sun is about 6 degrees of Pisces, sidereal Pisces. So we'll also touch on that a bit as well. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell on YouTube to get notified of new videos and live streams. Also, leave a comment, share it with others on Facebook, Twitter, or other social media platforms. So, as I say, this section of the sky known as Pisces in the sidereal zodiac is the place where we surrender, let go, after beginning at the sign of Aries in the sky. Again, Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, which is accurate with the sky. Then by the time the sun goes around all of these different constellations and sections of sky, it lands in Pisces, and then it's a time to let go. And there's even a term, give up the ghost, right? Let go of our worldly ambitions, our worldly identity, and surrender that spiritual surrender. Now, again, it's very easy to think we're spiritual in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, particularly because we're emotional, and all these words tend to sort of blur together. Particularly the concept of surrender is one of the most difficult, because we really want to surrender and let go of the bad stuff, the difficult stuff, and we want to keep all the good stuff, so to speak. This is the way the ego, or your separate self, perceives reality. When I say the ego, some people get offended by this type of language now. There's so many new age concepts and ideas that have infiltrated all of the Indian dharmic teachings that, we feel like we have to make concessions for all of these things. It's just very simple. We're a spiritual being. Our essence is spirit, is a spirit, undifferentiated. But then based on our karma, based on this separate form of existence that's been created by our karma, we incarnate to evolve and return back to that place of wholeness. But the ego, the sense of separateness, is so deeply embedded that there's a thing called Maya, or this illusion that we are actually the mind body. And in fact, this illusion is so deep. In yoga, it's called avidya, or just ignorance, or like primordial ignorance. Because, and again, it's the ignorance that you are this body and this mind. Now, again, you might say, well, no, I know I'm not the body and the mind. I know I'm the spirit. But do you really know it, or do you just believe it? It's a phrase. I'm saying these words and you've heard them before and you believe them, but do you know it? As much as you know, for example, if I punch you in the face, it's going to hurt. You know that. That's something that you know. You know that if you stick your hand in fire, it's going to get burned. You know that. So you don't stick your hand in fire. And you don't forget. You don't stick your hand in fire and then go, oh, wait a minute. The fire burned my hand that time. Well, let me see if it's going to burn my hand this time. Okay, it burned my hand again. Oh, let me just keep sticking my hand in the fire over and over again. If you did that, that would be something that you don't know yet. You have to keep suffering enough before you actually know it, and then stop doing the thing. Stop making the mistake. Putting your hand in the fire and saying, oh, well, I know fire burns me, but let me stick my hand in there again. Well, that shows you don't really know it. So we believe these ideas that we're spirit, but we don't really know it, or at least we don't know it well enough to act from that place. We act from a place of ego. And so that's what's called ego. And the ego functions through likes and dislikes. I want this thing, I don't want that thing. I like this thing, I don't like that thing. I want to avoid the things that give me pain. And that's perfectly natural. We all do. Again, none of these are judgments, they're just observations. But what we do on the spiritual level is to surrender the whole game, surrender the ignorance itself, surrender the ego, which are the likes and the dislikes. It's very easy to get confused because the ego wants to surrender the dislikes and keep the likes. I want to surrender and let go of the bad things, the people who don't like me, the people I don't like, the things that I don't like. But I want to keep the good things, the things I like, the people I like, the things I want. I'm talking about it like this because this is one of the biggest illusions, and particularly with spiritual people. And Pisces is a sign of illusion and projection and the dream. And we're in this dream that, oh, I know this. I know I'm an ego and a spiritual being. I know that. So why is life still so painful? Why is it so painful, so painful, so painful? Because you don't actually know it. It's not surrendering or letting go of the bad stuff so you can keep all the good stuff. It's surrendering the illusion itself. Awakening from the dream means also awakening from the good dream and realizing that the good dream is also really not as good as we think. Or the good dream is just gathering momentum to go to the bad dream. It's like a pendulum swinging. And we have a lot of these projections, which is a big part of Pisces, around other people. We project that, oh, this thing is going to save me. And then when it doesn't save me, oh, that thing was just trying to kill me the whole time. We do this a lot with people. Oh, this person's my savior. This person is God. This person's the devil. Once we project the God fantasy onto someone, there's nowhere to go from there but down into the devil fantasy. And we think they did it, what they did to us. Oh, you acted like you were God, but you were actually the devil. No, we projected that. Now, by the way, people might do that. It doesn't mean it isn't true. But people, when you're not projecting or when you're not looking for someone to be your savior, then you're not going to be disappointed when they show up as the devil. Someone who presents themselves as a savior to me, I can see right through it. Wait a minute. I don't trust you at all. I don't trust your savior complex. But if you're looking for a savior and someone shows up with a savior complex, they're going to be showing you exactly what you're looking for. And so that is the illusion of the ego that's looking to find a savior who's going to take away all the bad stuff. And it's the ego. It's all a game of ego. So this is an important way to understand Pisces in a larger context. And spiritual surrender, again, which is letting go of the whole game of the ego, letting go of all of that separateness. And I say letting go because letting go is really the hardest thing. We talk a lot about being spiritual, but letting go is the most spiritual thing there is. We have a lot of attachments, and the letting go part is the hardest thing. Attachments, meaning I'm not letting go. Again, because there's a lot of New Age teachings, people will think that this is being critical of having attachments. Look, there's nothing wrong with having attachments through the body and the ego and attached to other people and whatnot. But we have to see that that's not the only thing. That's not the only level of existence. spiritual people also have families and they love people in the world and they have attachments through the ego to other people, to things, to pleasure and pain. But they also see beyond that. They also have a place of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean that you're unattached. You can still be attached and have detachment. You can still have the thing and it's very important for you to be involved and be engaged, but also not be defined by that thing on a soul level, because we're here in the world through this body mind structure, through this ego, which again, the ego also it's not a bad thing. It's not bad. It's the vehicle through which we're working through our karma. But the karma creates the ego. And then eventually our highest karma and our highest attachment is to the things that allow us to surrender the whole game. People who've always tried to sort of trick me, or it's not really a trick, it's pretty much the first thing you learn is, well, you talk about your guru. What about attachment to your guru, huh? You have attachment to your guru, right? What about people's attachment to their spirituality? Isn't that also attachment? Yeah. But it's the attachment that destroys all the others. And it's not an unhealthy attachment, it can be. Again, it's like anything else. We can project an unhealthy attachment onto a guru through the ego and whatnot. It's certainly possible. But an authentic attachment to a guru or to your spiritual practices. What about the attachment to yoga? Okay, yeah, that's an attachment. I'm attached to doing yoga and I'm attached to meditation. But watch and see what happens. Go ahead and be attached to meditation and yoga and a guru and report back to me what happens. You should be so lucky. Again, and that's how these things work. This is why they're not judgments. They're not, these types of things that are meant to punish or to criticize. They're meant to be harmonized. Everything is along a spectrum and needs to be harmonized with its opposite. Because, for example, the Pisces thing, which can also be about, oh yeah, I'm very surrendered. I'm in my imagination and I'm not connected to this world at all. And I'm totally blah, blah. Well, that's also not healthy because you've incarnated with karma. So you need to have some attachment to the world. Because your karma in this world, in this lifetime, is through the body with this world. And the surrender and letting go of Pisces needs to be integrated with the details and the structures and the routines of Virgo, which is that earth-based quality, where instead of just surrendering and letting go and in this wild escapist fantasy land, which can lead to like alcohol and drugs and other kinds of escapism, we need to escape into the truth. And that means we need to have discrimination and intelligence to try to understand, oh, this is what's going on. And that's where the skill and virtue of Virgo, which is the opposite sign of Pisces, comes into play. Everything is about a harmonizing of energy. So the surrender of Pisces needs to be harmonized with the details and the involvement of Virgo, because Virgo is very involved and very even attached. They work in harmony with each other, but now you're attached and you're focusing and you're organizing the soul's evolution and surrender. Okay, now that's the highest for both, by the way. So the reason I talk about this as well is you can see that Pisces is up here, Sun and Moon are joined, but in 2 weeks, we're going to have a full moon over here in Virgo where we harmonize the energy of Virgo. Where we harmonize the energy of Pisces. This new moon in Pisces gets harmonized with the energy of Virgo when we have the full moon in Virgo. By the way, I track these daily movements all the time, and I do twice monthly forecasts in my astrology training lab. I'm going to be doing it today where I talk about this new moon in Pisces, which is different for every sign. Like if you're a Gemini, this new moon in Pisces is happening in your 10th house. So this is an entirely new cycle, entirely new month for a Gemini than it would be for Capricorn, where it's a third house cycle. And so these things are very important, and you can check this out. It's a member site where you can get access for just 50 cents. You can get daily forecasts and also this new moon in Pisces for your sign.
For 50 cents, you can get a 2-week trial to the Astrology Training Lab. In this, you get daily forecasts from Sam Jeppy. These are based on the Indian Panchanga, the classical Indian timekeeping system. You also get a monthly calendar from Melissa Flores Davis, where you can plan your whole month and see all the shifts. You also get 8 hours of classes just for joining, new and full moon updates from me as well. Again, it's only 50 cents for a 2-week trial, then $39.95 for as long as you want to stay a member. Just go to astrologytraininglab.com to register.
So yeah, these cycles are really some of the most important that we go through. This is really how I also live my life day to day, month to month, is these 2-week cycles where it's a month-long cycle with this new moon in Pisces. Will be for the next month. There will be a focus, like for me as a Gemini, on 10th house areas of life. For you as an Aries, it would be, or for you as Taurus, it would be 11th house cycle. For you as Scorpio, it would be a 5th house cycle. And then the full moon is opposite that, where you harmonize that energy with the month-long cycle. So it's a very important way to stay current with the cycles that are always happening, whether you know they're happening or not. So once people start paying attention to this, their whole reality shifts relative to astrology. Instead of trying to necessarily, diagnose your own chart and stuff like that, you start to see these cycles as being so important. That's why I do these new and full moon forecasts, because they're not only a general cycle, like I'm talking about with Pisces now and all of these qualities of surrender, but for each sign, it's going to hit you in a different way. You interact with the sign of Pisces in a completely different way. So this is in the nakshatra of Uttara Bhadrapada. Uttara Bhadrapada is the part of Pisces that has to do with the celestial serpent called Ahibudnya. Ahibudnya is paired with Aja Ekapada, these two celestial serpents who were assistants of Lord Shiva, and that help the soul transform and evolve toward this transformation that is needed. And again, you can really see in the sidereal zodiac of India, these nakshatras and these zodiac signs line up. In all the Vedic astrology texts, it says Aries and Ashwini at the beginning of the zodiac. They sometimes measured the sun based on seasons and whatnot, and they would sometimes refer to qualities and to movements of the sun using shorthand. Like they would call the vernal equinox Aries, they would call the winter solstice Capricorn, but that was just a shorthand. Every Vedic astrology text and every text that talks about locating planets in the sky, they use sidereal calculations. And the reason that's important is because by the time you get to this section of the sky, Uttara Bhadrapada, it's in the Rashi, in the sign of Pisces, in that section of the sky, right? And so, again, this isn't debatable. The reason I'm saying it is because in Western astrology, it's starting Aries today. The vernal equinox is the first day of Aries in Western astrology, but you can see the sun is in Pisces. This is Pisces, this constellation, that section of sky. So I say this because when we start looking at the nakshatras, it makes even more sense. Because Uttara Bhadrapada is the part of Pisces that's about going deep into the consciousness, the emotional waters, the deep, again, state of transcendence, that transcendent state of being that is your nature. And it's actually the second half of the deathbed. Purva Bhadra and Uttara Bhadra are two legs of the deathbed cot right here, where we have the death of the ego starts in Purva Bhadrapada from Aquarius, and then it ends in Uttara Bhadrapada in Pisces. That's where the ego is supposed to die. That's the ego death that I'm referring to. Then the last nakshatra is Revati, where after the ego death, then the shepherd leads the soul home, guides the soul home with the god Pushan, who is the shepherd. He takes the soul home in that final part of the journey. And you may have noticed here that on the bottom of the screen here, I have this thing that says Jupiter and Aries webinar for you, next level. I have that there because we're right on the cusp. As you can see, Jupiter is up here in Revati Nakshatra. And again, he's the ruler of this Pisces new moon. It's a very auspicious and blessed time right now because it's Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in Pisces on this new moon. So we have sun and moon in Pisces on this new moon of surrender and letting go and deliverance and awakening from the dream. Well, the one that really helps us awaken from the dream is Jupiter, who is guru. Instead of escaping into a fantasy world, because this world is so harsh and all the problems and details of this world, which would be Virgo, are so harsh, we want to escape into a fantasy world. No, we're supposed to escape from the fantasy and the illusion that we're an ego. We're supposed to escape into the truth, which is that we're this spiritual being. And right now, the guru, the highest teacher, Jupiter, is in the nakshatra and in the sign of Pisces and in the nakshatra of Revati, the shepherd. So it's a great time for you to be really connecting to these higher teachings, this higher wisdom, this learning. That includes astrology. That includes all these metaphysical teachings. But Jupiter is about to change. And as you can see here, I have a web class. It's jupiterwebinar.com. And you can get this free class that's on Jupiter. I'm going to type it in here and put it in the chat, jupiterwebinar.com. And you can see what's going to be happening where Jupiter's about to go into Aries, April 22nd, 2013, and for 12 months. You can just go there. When you click register now, it just pops up and you just register. And then it's more than an hour. I'm going to do case studies and really show how this is going to be for your sign, for all of the 12 signs. And also recent history of Jupiter and Aries and other things. Excuse me. It's also joined Rahu up there because Rahu is also in Aries. So this upcoming year, this upcoming like spring and into the summer, we have some big changes with Jupiter going into Aries and joining Rahu up there. And, this was actually a big part of my 2023 forecast as well. And as you can see here in my 2023 forecast, a lot of we're actually here right now. We've only had a couple of the 10 most important shifts. We're about to go here, which is this solar eclipse that's coming in early April, then Jupiter moving into Aries, and then again, we have another Mercury retrograde cycle. We have all of these things yet to go. So I would also encourage you, if you haven't got my 2023 forecast yet, to get that. Again, this is free. You can just register for that as well. 2023vedicastrology.com as well. But I want to encourage you definitely to check out this Jupiter in Aries web class. It's a free web class. And I do it this way because when I make these long videos and put them on YouTube, it hurts the analytics and stuff. So just go ahead and sit back for an hour, get off YouTube and watch the presentation. People love these full presentations, but it's very auspicious right now to have Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, here as the ruler of this sun and moon, and Mercury in Uttara Bhadrapada. Don't worry, I didn't forget. Yes, Mercury, it's debilitated. Oh God, debilitated. Yes, we can feel it there, which means that we're being challenged to get the story straight. We're being challenged to, again, awaken from the dream. We're being challenged to awaken from the dream and to, not stay, stuck in our illusions. but again, one of the things is that Jupiter is, or that Mercury is there with Jupiter in his own sign. That's what's called Nichabanga. It's one of the biggest Nichabangas, or the modification of the debilitation or of the Nietzsche. And so what it means is that this difficulty of Mercury as being stuck in a confused story and a confusing story and not getting the story straight is being rescued by Jupiter, who is there saying, yes, this confusing story you have needs to be connected with a guru and a teacher. So it's where the confusing story activates the awareness of the guru and of the teacher. So yes, you might be confusing your story. You might be confusing the teachings, and the things you're trying to learn might be confusing. You might even be confused about whether you can learn stuff. I've had a lot of this behind the scenes with astrology these days, where people have been, usually people can recognize when they see my stuff, they get encouraged that they can learn. But there's a lot of confusing stories now where people are still like, well, I'm not sure I could do it. It looks so hard. I'm confused. Again, so Mercury with the confusing story, even the confusing story about who you are, what this all means, whether or not you can actually learn or will ever be able to find the answer, that kind of stuff. Jupiter, the guru, the teacher, is there going, yes, here's the inspiration, here's the higher teachings, the higher wisdom, the guru is there. So maybe you're feeling this, right? So after this new moon, again, the moon has been waning since Mercury went into Pisces a few days ago. The moon was waning, and it went through these Saturn-ruled signs for the last 5 days or so. But after this new moon on Tuesday, once the moon starts waxing again, you might find this return of hope and inspiration. Things might have been kind of confusing, and maybe even feeling a little hopeless the last few days, maybe even this last week. Because what happened is the moon it hit K2, then it went through Scorpio, where it's kind of heavy. Sagittarius isn't a heavy sign, but this is right when Mercury went into Pisces and became debilitated. Then the moon went through Capricorn and Aquarius, where it was also joined Saturn. So there's been a lot of kind of intense energy the last week, and particularly with these planets in Pisces and with Mercury in Pisces, kind of losing the story. Wait a minute, what's inspiring me again? So you should really start to feel a resurgence in this inspiration Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's a time to also get a kind of resurgence of hope and inspiration and wisdom. Someone said, yes, this is Zuzka Vasiliev said, yes, she's probably been feeling that as well. So again, these transits, you could see where the moon has been, again, it was joined K2 for several days, then it was debilitated in Scorpio. Even when it was in Sagittarius, it's opposite Mars, but then ruled by these planets in Saturn ruled signs, joined Saturn. Now it's dark. It hasn't been so elevated. And the only planet that's actually been so elevated recently has been Jupiter, particularly because Venus was also exalted up here. So we had some big shifts last week where Venus left exaltation and went into Aries. Mars left its place in Taurus and went into Gemini. I did updates both here and also on Instagram, where you can see my updates here, where I did a lot of updates here myself on you see this Mars in Gemini, Venus in Aries. This was a big shift. These are some big shifts that happened last week. And so we're still kind of feeling that as well. So as these things shift, we can feel this elevation. Melanie said the surrender of truth to the divine and getting that out of the story. Over time, Mercury and Pisces can be very spiritual through alignment and sadhana. It can be, for sure. It can also be very confusing, but especially right now, this particular shift is going to happen with Jupiter there, with Jupiter the guru there the whole time. So thank you for also mentioning that, Melanie. So again, these are the things I wanted to talk about today, this new cycle of spiritual surrender, of growth. It's been some kind of interesting and perhaps even a little bit heavy times lately, but things are going to start feeling on the upswing a bit. Also, again, go back and look at video I just did with Venus in Aries, Mars in Taurus. Again, that's a big shift that just went to more sort of aggressive, even frustrated, and opinions, and those kinds of intense things tend to make life a little less enjoyable. Venus is in Pisces, and we're kind of going along with the dream a little more. He leaves, he's in Aries. Now we're like frustrated because we feel like we've been kind of daydreaming. Again, Mars was in Taurus, much more subdued. He goes into Gemini. It's a little more fired up. So there's definitely been a shift here in the last week or so where things have gotten more intense. And again, like I said, please register for this webinar. JupiterWebinar.com will get you there. This is a very important shift of Jupiter in Aries that'll be going for the next year. For the next 12 months, he'll also be joined Rahu, as we see. So it's very intense. And as I said, that's part of the 2023 forecast. If you haven't seen that yet, or you haven't gotten that yet, it's free. Go ahead and register for it. 2023vedicastrology.com is there. And as you see, we still have a long way to go in this year with the different, with all these different placements. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. Please share it with others, and thanks a lot. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the Astraved certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.